Bombshell testimony from Marilyn Mosby in her federal trial. What she's saying about her former husband, City Council President Nick Mosby, and what it could mean for the future of the case. Fox 45 News Project Baltimore is demanding answers from the head of DJS after a teen convicted of rape and under juvenile services supervision is allowed back in school.
What do you say to parents who had students that were in class with a convicted sex offender and they didn't know?
Plus, we're examining the relationship between the secretary and his relationship with the governor as our investigation into his past continues. House Democrats unveil their strategy to crack down on juvenile crime.
Accountability, rehabilitation, and collaboration.
New tonight, how they're taking action against the onslaught of car thefts in Maryland.
We need to know what's going on when they commit car theft.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. Tonight, Fox 45 News is following major updates in 3 developing stories.
That's right. Former Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby takes the stand in her own defense today. Her shocking testimony placing much of the blame for her financial troubles on her ex-husband, City Council President Nick Mosby. State Democrats unveiling their plan to tackle juvenile crime, answering the calls for change from police and prosecutors, where they think the current justice system is falling short, as some Republicans say the plan doesn't go far enough. Plus, our Project Baltimore team takes their questions directly to the Department of Juvenile Services Secretary Vincent Schiraldi, pressing him on why a 15-year-old convicted sex offender under DJS supervision was allowed to return to a classroom.
Do you think it's appropriate that a convicted sex offender is a student inside of a public high school?
Can you just hold on just 1 second?
Well,
I'll just get right back to you on that. Thank you very much.
Why are you taking my microphone?
Tonight, our team of reporters is digging deeper into Secretary Schiraldi's views on juvenile crime. Jeff Abel examines the relationship between Schiraldi and Governor Wes Moore and its possible impact on the state's crime fight. We begin with Project Baltimore's Chris Papps, as his investigation into the 15-year-old's case uncovers more details about Schiraldi's stance on sex offenders.
Mr. Schiraldi, we've sent your office a couple emails concerning...
Vincent Schiraldi is the secretary of the Maryland State Department of Juvenile Services. For nearly a week, we have been trying to speak with him concerning a Project Baltimore investigation that sparked outrage.
Excuse me.
A 15-year-old rapist under the supervision of DJS, attending a Baltimore City high school.
We've sent your office a couple emails concerning Patterson High School and the convicted rapist who was a student there.
Yeah, and the comms folks are getting back to you guys on that. I think that should happen today. Thank you very much.
Okay, do you think... Well, excuse,
I'm shaking hands.
Okay.
You can have this.
Well, do you think it's appropriate that a convicted sex offender is a student inside of a public high school?
Can you just hold on just 1 second?
Well, you're the secretary of Department of Juvenile Services. Why are you taking my microphone?
In late December, the 15-year-old pleaded to second-degree rape in Harford County, but he was not detained or committed to a DJS facility. Instead, the Department of Juvenile Services recommended probation and counseling, and he was ordered to have no unsupervised contact with children under 15. By early January, he was back in school in Baltimore City. When he returned to Patterson, the 15-year-old was facing an additional second-degree rape charge in Baltimore County for an alleged incident in April 2022. We cannot confirm if DJS knew about the second case when recommending probation.
Sir, can you just give me a minute? What do you say to parents who had students that were in class with a convicted sex offender and they didn't know?
So I think that you should get the response for us in the proper way and not do paparazzi stuff right outside of it.
Paparazzi? I'm at a public event, sir. I mean, just what do you say to parents? That's all we're asking. What do you say to parents who had students who were sitting in class with a convicted sex offender?
I don't know anything about the case you've sent to me. That's why we're looking it up and we're responding to you. But thank you very much.
By law, Maryland does have a juvenile sex offender registry. but it's only for law enforcement. It's not public like the adult registry. And according to Baltimore City Schools, a juvenile who is not on the sex offender registry cannot be removed from the school unless there is an imminent threat of serious harm to the health and safety of other students and staff.
Do you think the legislature should look into a situation like this?
Schiraldi would not answer our questions about the situation at Patterson, but he has spoken in the past about public sex offender registries. He believes they should be abolished.
The recidivism data for people who have committed sex offenses is no higher and often lower than a bunch of other people.
Schiraldi, back in 2020, was a senior research scientist at the Columbia University School of Social Work. In May of that year, he took part in this online discussion called the Evidence-Based Case for Ending Sex Offender Registries.
Electronic monitoring, house arrest, intensive supervision.
In the video, the panelists argue that registries fail to keep the public safe, and the stigma creates an underclass of people who struggle to find a good job and safe place to live.
They're not subhuman because of that behavior, and I feel like we've let that go. And I think that we won't win the policy debate until we remind people that even when you do a really bad thing that some people find very disgusting, you're still a human being.
In the discussion, Schiraldi goes beyond just ending sex offender registries.
I see a lot of messages about abolishing the registry, and you could say the same thing about probation and parole, about community supervision, right? Like, I'm torn personally. I lean towards abolition of those things and to figure out a way to capture the savings and put it in the hands of community to help people thrive when they come out of incarceration.
Yeah, and the comms folks are getting back to you guys on that.
The day after we tried to speak with Schiraldi, his office sent us a statement, which did not answer our questions about the Patterson situation or his views on ending sex offender registries. The statement reads, "The Secretary is leading DJS in making critical changes to provide better services, opportunities, and results for the young people in their care. He believes in accountability for kids who are violating the law. Using a data-informed approach, he is leading the charge to create better outcomes for youth, families, and communities."
He should have gone to jail.
But these mothers, who say the 15-year-old Patterson student victimized their daughters, feel very differently. They want strict penalties for sex offenders.
This juvenile offender is allowed to continue to live his life completely normal. The court pretty much gave him a slap on the wrist. There was no justice for my child.
This story is far from over. Shortly after Project Baltimore first reported on the rapist in Patterson High School, a state delegate took action by requesting legislation that would change state law to ensure this cannot happen again. That part of the story, Monday. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Project Baltimore wants to hear from you. Do you have a story to share about your child's education or a concern you'd like our team to investigate? Call the tip line on your screen or send an email to projectbaltimore@foxbaltimore.com. You can also find them on social media.
And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you think the public sex offender registry should be abolished? So far, 100% of people who voted say no. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
Governor Wes Moore has been a vocal supporter of Secretary Schiraldi, even writing the foreword for Schiraldi's book last year. Tonight, Fox 45 News is looking into the relationship between the two and how some say it is impacting the state's juvenile crime fight. Fox 45's Jeff Abel continues our team coverage. And Jeff, what are you learning about this relationship?
You know, Schiraldi has made his philosophy crystal clear, and while some critics may call it extreme, it appears the governor tonight could be calling it something else.
Young people are not just smaller versions of adults.
Almost from the beginning, Vincent Schiraldi has ignited a firestorm of opposition.
Doing better is no longer allowing Secretary Schiraldi to be in a position that there's a lack of accountability.
He is the biggest public safety threat in the state of Maryland right now.
But the one person providing unwavering support is Governor Wes Moore.
Now, we still have a lot of work to do. But if there's anyone who is up to the job, it's our Secretary of Juvenile Services, Vinnie Schiraldi.
It was last year when the governor appointed Schiraldi to lead Maryland's Department of Juvenile Services, but their relationship goes far beyond Maryland politics. In a book Schiraldi authored, which was released in September, Schiraldi thanks the Robin Hood Foundation for providing the primary funding for the book's research. The longtime leader of the Robin Hood Foundation was Governor Wes Moore.
Wes Moore helped pay for Vince Schiraldi's research to abolish probation and parole.
In the book, Schiraldi makes his case for abolishing probation and parole and describes a fictitious scenario that seems all too familiar. Imagine you're the governor of a mid-sized state, he writes. You've got a progressive corrections commissioner who has come to you with a bold idea to get rid of parole and probation gradually and carefully over a few years and engage your communities in supporting and providing services to people who have broken the law.
Very strange that he's almost writing a template for him and Wes Moore's plan at DJS. It's like they had it ready to go, or at least Vince Schiraldi did, and Wes Moore is helping him enact it.
After reading the book, Sean Kennedy at the Maryland Public Policy Institute is convinced Schiraldi's philosophy is the governor's philosophy.
It matters because Wes Moore knew what Vince Schiraldi was about, what he stood for, and what he was advocating, because he paid him to advocate it.
In an email to the governor's office, we asked, is it a fair assumption that Governor Moore supports Schiraldi's findings and research? Did you provide any funding, or are you benefiting from the book? And who initiated your relationship through Robin Hood Foundation with Vincent Schiraldi? The governor's spokesman responded, detailing Schiraldi's progress in Maryland and writing, Governor Moore hired Secretary Schiraldi to help make Maryland safer and to improve the state's juvenile justice system. He is leading the charge to create better outcomes for youth, families, and communities.
Those closest to the problem want consequences, and Vince Schiraldi doesn't believe in it, and that's a luxury of leniency that so many Marylanders don't have.
Despite Schiraldi's claim of progress, car thefts in this city are up 77% this year. Most of them, we're told, are fueled by juveniles. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. We have also heard concerns from people in Schiraldi's past, including New York City, where some officials say he failed at leading Rikers Island. They question why anybody would hire Schiraldi with his track record.
Fox 45 News has sent a number of questions to Secretary Schiraldi, but we haven't received answers to all of them. Some of the questions that we still want answers to include, did you ever request Governor Moore to write forwards in any of your publications? If so, which ones? In terms of publishing your book, Mass Supervision, where did you receive funding for the research and production of the book?
To secure grants from the Robin Hood Foundation, can you provide the documents your team submitted? Who initiated your relationship with Robin Hood Foundation? And again, we have not received answers to any of these questions.
Accountability within DJS is a large piece of House Democrats' juvenile crime agenda unveiled today in Annapolis. Republicans mostly in lockstep with the plan, but they say it's missing one key aspect. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor has the breakdown.
We've been clear that any juvenile justice bill that comes to my desk must emphasize accountability. All right.
Maryland State Capitol building, a packed house Wednesday, as Governor Wes Moore shoulder to shoulder with dozens of Democratic lawmakers announcing a packed list of legislative priorities aimed at combating skyrocketing juvenile crime across the state.
We need to make sure that actions have consequences, yes. And we need to make sure that our kids are getting the rehabilitation that they need.
We must hold our state and our local agencies accountable for improving the juvenile justice system.
Major changes in the comprehensive plan requiring police to provide written documentation of youth taken into custody, shortening the deadline for DJS intake decisions, strengthening staffing within DJS's ankle monitoring unit, increasing probation limits for youth offenders, and allowing children under the age of 13 to be charged with certain violent crimes currently blocked under controversial reform laws.
And we're focusing on making sure that the system actually works to improve public safety and improve rehabilitation.
If passed, crimes those under 13 could once again be charged with, including firearm-related offenses, car thefts, sexual offenses, and animal abuse.
These crimes seem to be consistently the issues again from police officers, from hearing from them.
And probation limits would be extended from 6 months for a misdemeanor and 2 years for a felony to 18 months and 4 years, respectively.
What's happening is that when someone is placed on probation, the access to services isn't happening quick enough. And so the length of probation could be halfway over or the majority over before they even get enrolled into services.
Overall, Republican lawmakers applauding the calls for accountability and clearer consequences.
I was encouraged by the tone of the rhetoric that we heard today, and we also appreciate that they recognize the system is broken.
Senate Minority Whip Justin Reddy only pointing to one missing priority: legislation that would repeal the current Child Protection Interrogation Act, which mandates an attorney be present before juveniles can be questioned by police.
They have this bizarre view that we shouldn't have parents and children be able to work together to answer questions about crimes. We need to change that law.
A change many state and local law enforcement leaders have been pushing for.
It stops that juvenile from getting the services they need because you don't know what problem they actually have if you can't talk to them.
It has become more difficult for police to question young people about anything.
As Democrats double down, calling the law misunderstood.
The police officers' hands are not tied. We've also built in a public safety exception, so there's a wide berth of latitude for them to effectuate investigations. So as long as it's not an interrogation, they have the tools available.
Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
While Republicans say they're on board with the proposal, they're worried some of the tough on crime measures could become watered down as the bill makes its way through the legislative process. Fox 45 News will continue to follow the legislation as it works its way through the House and also the Senate.
The Maryland Office of the Public Defender is highly critical of the plan, saying it's a return to decades of policies that hurt children and fail to solve crime issues in Maryland. The plan includes much of what state's attorneys across Maryland have been asking for, including most of the legislative priorities Ivan Bates and Aisha Braveboy laid out late last year. During a Fox 45 News roundtable earlier this month, a panel of prosecutors brought up many of the accountability issues lawmakers are now addressing.
All of these kids are getting arrested several times. So they commit a crime one day, they're arrested, they get out, they're arrested again. They get out, they're arrested again. And so by the time we get them and we're prosecuting them, they may have 3 or 4 or 5 J1s. And so the question is, why didn't we put anything in place after the first arrest so that the child wouldn't be arrested a second or third time?
What we're saying is, let's not put this in DJS's hands. Let's say if it's a gun case, if it's a crime of violence, or any and all car cases, let's treat them as a special so they automatically go see a judge or judicial magistrate. We treat it like the regular criminal justice system.
State's attorneys mentioned juvenile car thefts, one of the areas where young people could start seeing stiffer penalties. Fox 45's Keith Daniels is diving into the specifics around the plan. We'll have his report coming up at 10:30.
Bombshell testimony in the federal trial of former Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby today as she took the stand in her own defense. The city's former top prosecutor placing much of the blame on her former husband, City Council President Nick Mosby. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost explains.
It was a tense day on the stand for Marilyn Mosby as she faced some tough questions about her previous perjury conviction and her mortgage applications. But through it all, Marilyn Mosby continues to blame everyone but herself. As Marilyn Mosby's federal mortgage fraud trial stretches on, have you decided, will you testify? In a surprising turn, Mosby opting to testify in her own defense, taking the stand reiterating the trust she had in her then-husband, Baltimore City Council President Nick Mosby. Marilyn detailing their love affair starting in college. But Marilyn says Nick had a history of being lax with his bills, and eventually that caught up to him. Marilyn Mosby telling the jury Nick had turned off his taxes in 2011 and 2013, eventually racking up tens of thousands of dollars in back taxes. Nick Mosby did start making payments to the IRS, a tax liability Mosby admits she knew about when she filled out mortgage applications in 2020.
But she claimed she thought Nick was up to date on those payments to the IRS, and therefore she didn't need to disclose it while buying a home in Kissimmee, Florida. But Nick Mosby was not up to date on those IRS payments. There was a $45,000 tax lien on the Mosby's home in Baltimore. Prosecutors say she should have disclosed the tax debt, and her failure to do so is central to this case. But the tax debt is only one lie prosecutors say Mosby told during her real estate ventures. They also say she submitted this gift letter, which they say is false. It details how Nick gave Marilyn the $5,000 she needed to secure a better interest rate while buying a condo in Longboat Key. But FBI accountants previously testified Nick did not have enough money in his account, and records show Marilyn wired him the money before he then shuffled it around and eventually sending it back to her. Now, Marilyn says she wired him that money to ensure he would have enough, but did not think doing so was wrong. The string of lies don't stop there, prosecutors say. This letter Mosby wrote before buying the condo falsely claimed she had been in Florida for the past 70 days. Records show it was 37. And on the stand, Marilyn admitted to writing the letter while in Baltimore. On the stand, Marilyn told the jury she regretted not testifying in her perjury trial, and this time she wanted the jury to hear her truth. Those words causing significant delay in the trial Wednesday as both sides argued over what questions could be asked about the perjury trial. And that's when things turned tense. Prosecutors and Marilyn talking over each other at times. Eventually, prosecutors questioned Marilyn about her filling out the mortgage applications, and that's when she admitted to not reading everything she signed. Like this second home rider she signed indicating she would not rent the Kissimmee home. But days prior, she signed a contract with a property management company to handle the rentals at the home. Despite admitting to not reading every document, Mosby says she trusted the mortgage broker to guide her.
Ms. Mosby, how do you think you did today?
Leaving the courthouse.
Do you have any comment for the people of Baltimore? Anyone at home?
Marilyn and her supporters not saying much as this trial continues for another day.
Prosecutors are expected to continue cross-examination Thursday morning. Based on the pace of this trial so far, we could see it stretch into next week as well. In Greenbelt, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, Marilyn Mosby's testimony today comes after City Council President Nick Mosby's testimony and revelations about his financial history. Mr. Mosby told the jury he was responsible for the couple's tax troubles. Prosecutors say he repeatedly committed perjury on tax forms dating back to 2014. Nick Mosby admitted to funneling more than $1,000 worth of clothing expenses through his businesses and that he lied to reporters about the tax lien on his home to keep the truth from his wife. Political analyst John Deedy says this raises questions, serious ones, about his ability to be in a leadership role.
And I think he's got to do a lot of thinking about running and leaving in a situation where he ends up looking worse. You need $200 million to erase stuff like that. And I think that voters will look at it and say, we want to continue the Mosby drama. All these things coming out create an extreme increase of a lack of trust.
Fox 45 has been following the Mosby case every step of the way. For our full reporting and the latest on the trial, head to foxbaltimore.com.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock, some of the biggest names in tech are butting heads with Congress about who's responsible for keeping kids safe online. We have a report from Washington that takes a closer look at the disconnect. A Maryland lawmaker is introducing a bill that would keep transgender athletes off girls' high school sports teams. While supporters say it's necessary to keep things fair, opponents call it discrimination. Baltimore is buzzing right now about the Angelos agreement to sell the Orioles. We hear the excitement from some fans and the sharp criticism from the state treasurer.
Well, we are hoping for some sunshine tomorrow, but we do have a bright spot tonight in our studio.
Oh, happy to welcome our new chief meteorologist, Gerard Jabali.
Thank you so much, guys.
Welcome to Fox 45 and to Baltimore, your new city.
I was told by many, many people I had to prepare for my trip here. To pack carefully.
Yes.
But I packed really lightly. Hopefully what I got was correct.
Hey!
That's all you need.
Right?
That's it.
This is all I brought.
That's all you need.
I sprinkle it on everything.
You put it on your toothbrush in the morning.
Yeah. I shower with it too. It's great for the scalp treatment. Old Bay, you guys. I mean, I'm a lover of it already.
There you go.
So anyway, thank you for the warm welcome, and I am, of course, thrilled to be here, a part of Baltimore. You guys are my kind of style. The seafood, and of course, everyone's been very, very friendly. Charm City, 34 degrees. It's gotten chilly very quickly. If the temperatures keep falling, we're going to blow our low forecast, but we're going to keep it right around freezing, 32 degrees. The reason why we're expecting the clouds to thicken up, that may insulate us a little bit, knocking our temperatures right about level where we're seeing. So some patchy fog possible tonight too. I'm going to keep it still as a green light for your morning drive by 8 a.m. It's going to still be near freezing with the patchy fog around. Sunshine should start to creep in, and we should have a decent amount of it by the time we get around to lunchtime. So 49 degrees is where we're probably going to stop around lunchtime. Still going to be a pretty mild day. We're going to talk, of course, a whole lot more about what's coming our way. Big changes in the forecast. Another big system we might be seeing here in the next week or so. A lot to talk about. We'll go to it in a bit.
All right, Gerard, thank you. Coming up at 10:30, calls for stronger accountability for juvenile car thieves. Fox 45 News looks into how state Democrats are taking action.
And stunning video shows several boats on fire in Canton today. What we're learning about the blaze is one boat sank to the bottom of the harbor.
We've been clear that any juvenile justice bill that comes to my desk must emphasize accountability.
Maryland Democrats unveiled their juvenile crime plan, emphasizing a need for stronger consequences for youth offenders. Now, that plan would increase probation limits for young offenders and require police to provide written documentation of youth taken into custody.
It outlines changes for the Department of Juvenile Services, including a shorter deadline for intake decisions and more staff within the ankle monitoring unit.
The bill would also reverse a portion of the current juvenile crime code, stating children under 13 can't be charged with certain crimes. Many Republicans are in lockstep with the plan.
I was encouraged by the tone of the rhetoric that we heard today, and we also appreciate that they recognize the system is broken.
Democrats say firearm charges, sexual assaults, and car thefts have been some of the juvenile crime problem areas for police.
We've heard all about car thefts for months from residents, and Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us live now with how Democrats plan to tackle this issue. Keith?
Well, Mary Kai, before the plan was unveiled today, Senate President Bill Ferguson told us last week that the car theft issue was of major concern and that it would be included in the proposed legislation. And tonight, a closer look. It's an issue frustrating residents across Maryland, a car theft crisis. In Baltimore City, one man's voice unforgettable when talking about it.
Man, I think it's ridiculous out here, man.
Vincent Allen, not holding back, frustrated over the record-breaking number of cars being stolen, many of them, police say, taken by juveniles.
I'm 49 years old. I work hard for my little piece of crap. I'll be damn one of these little kids come and try to steal my cars. I'm gonna give them something they could get stolen. I'm not playing that. People work hard for their cars.
That was Allen 2 weeks ago. Now, lawmakers taking action.
Good morning.
In Annapolis Wednesday, Governor Wes Moore, flanked by leaders of the General Assembly, which is controlled by Democrats. The group unveiling legislation meant to boost accountability for juvenile offenders and the adults who run the juvenile justice system.
I'm confident in this team. I'm thankful for this legislature. I'm confident that together we will take a big step to move Maryland forward and to make Maryland safer.
A major part of the bill would expand the jurisdiction of the Maryland Department of Juvenile Services to children under 13 for several offenses, including car thefts. According to Baltimore police, 682 vehicles have been stolen so far this year. Last year, police report just over 11,000 auto thefts in the city, up from just over 3,500 in 2022. That's more than a 200% increase. A crime triggering public outcry for lawmakers to do something to get it under control, including holding young offenders
While youth offenders account for less than 10% of the crimes committed, unfortunately, it is clear that they've become the largest part of the crime perception challenge in Maryland.
Public safety that need to be addressed. We need to know what's going on when they commit car theft. We need to know that they are then going to be able to get the services that they're supposed to get.
According to the Maryland Department of Juvenile Services, there has been a 63% increase in car thefts involving juveniles, a bleak statistic for a man named Vincent.
I'm not worried about nobody. Come and try to steal my car. You gonna have something for you.
While the governor emphasizing why there is a need for consequences for juvenile offenders, there's also a need, he says, to make sure that those kids, quote his words, kids get the rehabilitation they need. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Well, Baltimore police say only about 60% of stolen cars are recovered, and victims who are able to locate their stolen cars say it is an ordeal to get it back. A woman in Little Italy tells Fox 45 News her license plates were replaced by thieves. And when she went to pick up her car at the impound lot, she says workers demanded payment for 9 traffic tickets connected to the other plates. The tickets amounted to more than $900.
That car is my property. I made the payment on it this month, and they're holding my car ransom until I pay somebody else's tickets.
You have a criminal that takes your car,
and then they treat you like a criminal when you go pick it up, and then they become the criminal because they won't release it.
If you have a stolen car story or know somebody who's been impacted by the spike in auto thefts, we want to hear about it. Just scan that QR code on your screen. Tell us what happened or send an email to news@foxbaltimore.com.
Another development in Annapolis. State Republicans are introducing the Fairness in Girls Sports Act, which would require varsity and JV teams to be based off biological sex. Fox 45's Jessica Babb takes us through the plan and some of the pushback.
I love playing basketball and like all sports for women.
For 7th grade basketball players Aaron and Reagan, they say they want to support girls' sports.
Just the fun of it, playing with friends and having a good time.
That's why alongside their teammates, they're standing behind Delegate Kathy Sliga, who says her bill will help them do that.
This bill is simple. House Bill 47. It's about fairness for girls, and it's about protecting our girls on the field and in the locker room.
House Bill 47 requires interscholastic and intramural JV and varsity teams designated based on their biological sex, meaning there would be a boys team, girls team, and a coeducational or mixed team.
This is science. It's biology. Boys are faster, stronger. And it's not just protecting girls' athletic opportunities, but protecting them from injuries.
While it's not clear how many students this will impact, it also says any governmental entities, athletic associations, or licensing and accrediting organizations can't accept a complaint or conduct an investigation or take action against a school with separate teams for women.
We don't allow athletes to identify into an age category based on feeling older or younger. Sex categories are the same. The only way sport can be fair for women is with a protected female category that excludes competitors with male advantage.
With coeducational teams mentioned in the bill, when asked what would happen if not enough students wanted to participate.
This bill doesn't talk about male, doesn't talk about co-ed. It simply says that JV and varsity girls sports are going to be for girls.
I think, when we're talking about this issue, we really want to see equity in sports, and that means participation along the identified genders.
But not everyone is on board with passing the bill.
Just like we have with race, we don't have black and white folks, we have a spectrum of race, so gender is also a spectrum.
Jessica Babb, Fox 45 News.
Orioles owner John Angelos confirms he is selling the team after more than 30 years under his family's ownership. Billionaires David Rubenstein and Michael Bloomberg are part of the ownership group, along with the Orioles legend Cal Ripken Jr. and Basketball Hall of Famer Grant Hill. Orioles fans excited for what new ownership could bring to the team and the community.
Hey, I'm proud of what they've done. I love it. I love the way that they building. They got a new team, right? It look like they might even go farther next year. So just anticipating on them having a winning season next year.
I think that the spirit that you build in the city around a team is going to be as important or more important than the talent that you have on the field.
And while fans seem excited, some state leaders say they feel differently. Treasurer Derek Davis says he was lied to, referencing reports from when the lease deal at Camden Yards was made, saying the Angelos family told the governor they never intended to sell.
But when you ask in the state for $600 million, and on top of that, you are asking for more, and you're asking for development rights, all in the name of we're going to do this for Baltimore and the state of Maryland and its people and how much we love. And you knew you weren't going to even be there. You knew you weren't going to even be there. So it was just a lie.
This is our team, especially anytime that you're talking about the use of taxpayer dollars, because that's where we take the highest, not just privilege, but also respect.